Dr. Zee, where we share everyday stories with you, everyday women. Are you ready to hear heart-to-heart key issues that we all face, no matter where we are in the world? So grab your cup of tea and let's welcome your host, author, international speaker, reinvention strategist, and woman that's full of faith in God and mankind, Dr. Zena Arinzi.
Hello, everyone. Wherever you are from all over the world, hello, and welcome. My name is Dr. Zena Arinzi, and I'm just here to welcome you to another episode of A Cup of Tea with moi, Dr. Z. You are incredibly welcome. All over the world, it's International Women's Month. Tomorrow, the 8th of March, is going to be International Women's Day. And I don't know where you might be around the world, whether you're going for a march or not, but wherever you are, do all you can to ensure that you empower not just yourself, but you empower another woman. It's really important. We've been talking about equality, equity, parity, gender, and also and everything in between. And if you have been following the stats, you will know that according to the WEF, that's the World Economic Forum, we are literally 134 years away from ever getting close to equality or equity or parity with regards to women and young girls. And I'll put that in context for you. If you know anything about the UN Sustainable Goals, I happen to be a UN participant, SW 69, and so it's something I'm really passionate about. And for those of you that follow me, you know that everything about me is women. I love women so much. I love women. I love being a woman, and I love being a parent or a mother to two amazing women. And apart from that, I love coaching and mentoring women all over the world. And this particular podcast obviously is a passion project for me. And for those of you that are new to the podcast, you know that you just need to know that I do this because it's an opportunity to spotlight amazing, extraordinary women all over the world who are doing extraordinary things. And extraordinary is relative. For some people, it might be you're going on the moon or you're power gliding. Or for someone else, it might be the fact that you've been in bed for a year with depression and you finally come out of bed and taken your first shower for a year. You've gotten a bar of soap and you've washed your hair. That is extraordinary. For some other people, it might be being in a war-torn area. For some other people, it might be the fact that, you know, you're a teacher and you empower young minds somewhere in a place where no one goes to. So it's relative, but I want you to know that you are an extraordinary woman if you're listening right now. And if you're listening, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you are, or YouTube, just put where you're listening in from and we'll start the show. My next guest, oh my days, my next guest is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, everyone, I say this every week, and that's what you're going to say, Dr. Sydney. You said no, but every single guest I've ever had is absolutely phenomenal. But this particular one, she's really phenomenal. And it's really my honor, my privilege to actually introduce her to the show, especially because this is, as you can see behind me, an International Women's Special. And we're going to be talking about something that people don't really like to talk about. You know, we try to sweep it under the carpet. But you know what? Being extraordinary, spotlighting is about spotlighting and talking about things that people don't always like to talk about. Everything is not always going to be hunky-dory. Everything's not going to be pretty as pie or pink, like I'm always in pink. It's not always about that. If we want to move on in life, if we want to elevate, if we want to accelerate, like we know the theme for the campaign is accelerate action. If we want to do that, we have to be ready to have difficult conversations and address difficult situations so that we can get the growth or the help that we need. That's just to put that in context. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my next guest. I know she's listening. I can see her in the green room just laughing like, what are you saying about me, Dr. Zena? What are you saying about me? I'm going to read her bio. And I have to say, for my previous guest, they'll be laughing. This is the shortest bio I've had. So I'm not going to go over my lips. I'm not going to lisp. I'm not going to bite my words, So this is really good, but I'm going to read it really quickly. Now, my next guest, I'm not going to tell you her name yet. Drum roll. I like the sound of my own voice, I know. Is the founder of Livin Warrior. And that's Livin, Livin, without the G. Livin Warrior. And it's an academy recovery program. And it's the first of its kind. Now you know why she's extraordinary. It's the first of its kind with regards to online abuse recovery that addresses both abuse and trauma recovery. She's also a narcissistic abuse survivor herself, following a history of both adult and childhood abuse. And she's a trauma and abuse specialist, a teacher, fantastic teacher at that, and an author. After breaking away from her own abusive dynamics and going on her own journey of self-discovery, therapy, and healing, she's now here to show the world how you can do it too. Now, without further ado, and I can see her, I'm trying not to make her nervous. She's laughing. I'll bring her in. Now, be ready to be amazed and be empowered by the phenomenal, the incredible Angelena Lewis.
What a beautiful introduction. That was amazing. Thank you so much. I love that.
I could see you, and I'd be like, oh my days. You are so incredibly welcome, and I'm really grateful that you have taken the time, because I know you're incredibly busy with teaching and all the wonderful things that you do to empower women around the world. But I'm really grateful also because this is obviously International Women's Month. This is the weekend. Tomorrow is the 8th. There's the march. There are people that are going to go braless, hatless, whatever it is. And hear me well. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your campaign is. I might not believe in what you believe in, but if you are stepping out, whoever's listening right now on the replay, and you're going on that march tomorrow, whether it's in London, where I'm, America, wherever it is, and you're doing something that means something to you, it might be pro-choice, not choice, whatever it is, I support you. I might not agree with everything. I'm a pro-choice person. As a Christian, people don't like that, but that's me. I believe it's my body.
That's surprising.
I know.
Pro-choice?
I am pro-choice, and most of my friends that are Christians can't understand that. But for me, it's because I'm a woman. For me, I'm a woman.
No, I get it. Yeah.
And in as much, and I know we haven't even started the show, and this is just but in as much as as a Christian, Bible, abortion, and all that, those are not right, good decisions to do. I get that. And how old is the child? The child is a fetus, and all those arguments. I understand those arguments perfectly. But what I am saying is that God doesn't need me or anyone else to legislate for him. If I'm obviously not going to be having an abortion anytime soon. I'm not having babies. But if I were to have an abortion as a Christian, I have to answer to God. God would deal with me the way he deems fit. And I'm saying he. I don't believe that a male-dominated legislator would have to make a decision on the decisions I make concerning my body. And even if I make the wrong decisions, it's still not right, but I'm not going to, I will take you down this rabbit hole, trust me. So I'll leave that there. But anyway, welcome to the show. But I feel very, very strongly about this, very, very strongly. And yes, I know abortion is bad and all that. I really agree with that. But I really don't feel that my agency as a woman should be taken away.
I just think that is one of the things that really struck me about, what's happening in the US right now. That opens the door for reproductive abuse on a mass scale.
Absolutely.
And I'm just horrified that this is being allowed to happen. Horrified. But yeah, we're going down rabbit holes.
I can see we're already aligned on that. So I have had several very interesting, strong discussions with my friend, because I'm a born again believer, a woman of God, and all that. And this is not, it's kind of contrary to lots of what many Christians believe,
Of course.
And all that. But then I'm not many Christians. I report to God. I can't do it, and if I'm wrong, God will tell me accordingly.
But you can't take godly principles and put it in a sinful system.
Absolutely.
That only puts us in a situation as women to be more vulnerable to the sins. That's the situation. That's the that is the biggest problem I see with it. It's like, okay, but there's no infrastructure of Christianity where this is being applied, because at the same time as he's saying, I heard this, guys, confirm for me in the comments if you know better, but this is what I've heard about it. At the same time as he's telling women that you don't have agency of your own body and you're not allowed to do this thing, he's also given men the right to withhold contraception from their wives. So that is the ABC of reproductive abuse. It just is. It's like, okay, so we don't have the option to take contraception unless our husband agrees. And if our husband, so say, wants us barefoot and pregnant, we've got absolutely no power over that. Crazy.
I'm just laughing, and I'm not laughing ha. I'm laughing because, and for those of you listening, this is not what we have, this is not part of our discussion, but I can see that it's something that both of us feel very, very strongly about. And I guess what I'm saying live right now is that I will bring you back to discuss just this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do that.
Yes, let's go. But let's get into the show.
Okay.
Let's get into the show. Happy International Women's Day, ladies, wherever you are. And you too, my darling.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me. I was going to say same to you.
I'm talking to you as well. Right. You are the founder of Living Warrior. And I like it for the fact that it doesn't have a G. And before I go into my questions, why doesn't it have a G?
Because it's a long story. The original name of my business when I started, because I started out as a therapist, right? And then the original title was Live in Focus. So it's like live in focus and live in focus. That was my whole thing, right? So it was a play on like live in focus, as in you're living with focus, and then it's living. Anyway, it changed to Living Warrior because I felt that we needed a little bit more oomph behind the title, because I started off very like, ooh, everything's lovely, and as long as you focus, everything's fine, and like the law of attraction, you just the positive thinking, and then I was like, yeah, sweetheart, we're gonna have to put a backbone behind that whole thing. So then it was like, okay, Living Warrior. So I changed it to Living Warrior. Now, when I think about it now, was I already, I hadn't specialized in abuse or had I? I hadn't specialized specifically in abuse, but I'd specialized in the understanding that in order to get through this life, you've got to be a bit of a warrior. And I don't mean in order to get through this life, any old how. I mean, in order to get through this life with your integrity, with your love, and your ability to give love intact, you have to be a bit of a warrior, because it's, I think, I don't want to say it's easier. That's not what I want to say. But what I do want to say is a lot more challenging to hold on to all of those things.
I get it.
And one of the things that I promised myself as a child is that nothing would affect my core self. Because once something, do you know what I mean? Like your core being, your core character. Because once that happens, they win.
Yes.
Right? If you like, there's this whole match energy thing that goes on in society, and it's like, well, they've won then. Because they've managed to get you outside of your character into some other person that you don't even know.
and
And
you
it's
and you will regret.
and you
You
will.
will regret, and they would have moved on, and you're busy saying, "What had just happened? Why did I present myself like this? Why did I?" Yeah, I get
And
it.
sometimes you stay there for so long you don't
Yes,
even remember your
yes,
former.
yes,
Do you
yes,
know?
yes.
And we think that jumping into that anger, jumping into that state
Mm,
is powerful,
mm,
when in actual fact, or it's going to make us happy, when in actual fact, the happiest form that we could be in is in our authentic state. And it is the
absolutely,
most powerful state to be in. So to
absolutely.
come out of that for any reason is
Yeah.
disempowering.
Absolutely, and there's a saying in Nigeria. I think it's just a colloquial saying, but it's like when you're speaking patois and pidgin, so
Mm,
why are you taking? How did they say? Why are you taking Panadol for some? For somebody else's headache?
right,
You know,
exactly.
why are you taking? Or another thing they would say is, I think it's unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die.
Exactly.
That person, those people, that situation, whatever it is, has moved on. You're forgotten. You're not even like a dot under their foot.
Right. But
And you're still carrying anger and unforgiveness and bitterness and everything. And what it's doing in the realm of the spirit is that it's making you smaller and smaller. So you could be as tall as me, or you could be short. It doesn't matter how you're physical, but in the spirit, you're just shorter and shorter. And it manifests when you speak, when everything that you do. And you don't know, because we're not always, very self-aware of these things. And this will take us into what we're talking about, because already we've started. I'm
I wanted
loving
to
this.
add to that about in the spirit, because what you were saying about in the spirit, another thing that I believe going in in a slightly spiritual direction is that when you do that and you get into the anger and you disconnect from God, which means you disconnect from your blessings.
Yes.
For
Hallelujah.
whatever period of time you remain in those states, you disconnect from your direction, you disconnect. Right?
Absolutely.
So in that, you can't get what is meant for you. You can't let anybody get in the way of what is meant for you. So that's where the back to the living warrior. That's what it's all about. It's all about staying true, staying on course, staying in your authentic power, staying there, even through experiencing abuse. So say, because this is what I specialize in,
Yes.
right? So even through that state is about getting back to your center after such an experience, right?
You know what I like about this is, and we haven't had this discussion, and like I
We
said,
haven't even had this.
like I said to you, in the green room, backstage, that I don't script, because when you script, it just becomes staunting. This is coming raw from your heart and from my heart, and you've just touched on something that I can really, really identify with. I remember this was years ago. Ooh, going back maybe about 15 years or more, and I remember I was still married at the time, and I remember. It must have been, yeah, maybe more than 15. But I remember having one of the last arguments I had with my ex-husband. And I remember saying to him, and that was the turning point for me, when I realized that I could not afford to hold anything against him or anybody. I'm quite selfish in that manner. And what I
Right.
said to him is, you know what? We had this argument. I can't remember what it was about. I don't need to remember. But I said to him in pidgin, I said, "You see that place? You see this place?" So what do you mean? That place that I must enter. I'm saying it for those of you that don't understand, Nigerian, accent. I can put it on. I must enter that heaven. I must enter. You're not gonna stop me from, because I just knew that the way I was getting, I would get bitter. I would, I don't know, I could just see, I could just recognize something that was gonna happen if I didn't nip it in the bud. And for me, and as much as I love the world, I like call myself a secular Christian. I love the world. I like dressing up. I like all that. But for me, I want to get to heaven. I like whenever it is that God calls me home. For those of you that are believers, that nothing's going to stop me from getting there. So if you are in the way, I need to. The Bible says, whatever causes you to sin, and I'm a sinner like everyone else, but it's something that that I have control over. I need to cut it off. So if it's my attitude, I need to cut it off.
Right.
I don't need to wait for the Holy Spirit I need to take accountability and take responsibility for my own actions. And if you're listening to us right now, you don't have to, and this is not about being a Christian or being a Muslim, whatever faith you are. It's about taking responsibility for your emotions.
I was going to say, I am not a Christian, technically speaking. So, audience, this is not a strictly Christian conversation.
Absolutely.
We're talking from different sides of the track, but agreeing on just basic principles, I think.
Take responsibility. Absolutely. Take responsibility for your emotions, because your emotions can either propel you forward or keep you bound.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter. And I'm not trying to devalue or invalidate what you may have gone through or what you might be going through. I'm not doing that I in any shape or form, because people have gone through atrocious things, and people are going through atrocious things even right now as we speak. But what I am saying is that to the level in which you're able to move out from that, it is really on you. It really is, with the help and support.
Whilst we talk about forgiveness, can I just touch on the fact that my understanding of forgiveness is to be able to come back to a state of neutral about that situation. It's not about, oh, it's okay, you did me wrong and I'm okay with you. You don't have to be okay with that person. You don't ever have to be okay with that person. You don't ever have to bring that person back into your life. But when you think about that experience, I need you to be in a state of neutral.
Absolutely.
Right? And that for me is forgiveness.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
You don't have to have a conversation.
Yes.
And it takes time. I think it's like
time. It does take time.
I think it's like an onion. It takes layers. But as long as you are working on coming back to your center rather than feeding into the negative emotions, you're going to get back to yourself.
You know, I like what you're saying, because it just, I'm able to pull lots of examples. I remember a few years back, this might be about, I don't know, maybe 10 years or something. I was having a conversation, just a girlfriend conversation on the weekend. You're in the group chat, you're lying in bed and you're just talking. It's 2:00 in the morning, you're laughing, kick. And I said, she said, oh, you've got lovely daughters. I said, I know. I said, you know what? If I had to marry my ex-husband again to have those same daughters, I would do that. She goes, did you hear what you said? I said, yeah. I was even shocked. But the gifts that I have in the form of my daughters, not to say that they're perfect, but none of us are perfect, but in the form of my beautiful daughters, I would marry that man again with my eye, without even thinking, because of what came out of it. And that's the neutral that you're talking about.
Exactly. The 110%. I would live my life over to get right back where I am.
Yes.
I have an insight into abuse that I think is pretty awesome. Because of my own experiences. Right now, I had to go away and study this too, because I didn't want it to be like just a personal thing that I'm just basically sharing with everybody. I wanted to get a higher understanding of it outside of myself, outside, a broader perspective.
Yes.
But I would go and live that life. I believe that we choose, this is getting really spiritual now, but I believe that we choose the life that we're going to live before we even get here. I believe we choose it.
You do know, like I said, you are coming back to this show. So.
I hope so. But that's me speaking on a spiritual tangent. I absolutely it makes sense to me. I'm like, okay,
Zena, come on, let's do this show, because I'm leading you.
Let's do the show.
The ADHD is working now. I'm leading you all over the place. Now, I know guys that are listening, they're going to be listening, they're laughing, those that are listening to the replay. But, the first question I really want to, ask you, and thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for being so vulnerable already and being so open to share from your heart. This is really, I know that people are someone put, the more we move forward, the further back we go, it seems. And that is so true.
Interesting.
Yes, that is so true, so true.
Is she talking in regards to the females?
Yeah, what we were talking about. I think when we were talking about pro-choice and all the different things we were talking about, and that's so true. So the first question, this first question, I've been saying this, but it's like when I go out with my daughters and we go there 27, 24, and we go out and they're like, okay, mom, are we going? I'm like, yeah, we're going. All right, so we have to go. Thank you so much for having us. 1 hour later.
Yeah. I know that.
Right. Okay. So why is trauma a global issue?
Trauma is a global issue
for women and girls.
For women and girls?
Yes.
I think it's I feel like you're not going to get through life without it. I feel like trauma has been the concept of trauma has been so, I don't want to say exaggerated, I need another word, but you get what I mean. It's so big that we don't understand that it can come in very small, subtle forms.
Yes.
Like childhood neglect, for instance.
Yes.
Like, and even someone who, for example, the opposite of that, who's like someone who's doesn't give you boundaries at all, doesn't give you limits at all, makes you do your own thing. That's a form of childhood neglect, which is a form of trauma, right? Over time. So you're going to go out with some symptoms as a result of I'm not going to say just because that is quite a thing, but when we think of trauma, we think of, oh my gosh, abuse happened, or we were almost killed, or we had this thing happen. And if you think of it, can happen you can be traumatized by the subtlest of things.
Yes.
How can we possibly get through life without it?
Yes.
Without being traumatized in some form, without being affected on some level, especially as women.
Yes.
Especially as women.
Yes. You make a very interesting point there, because women, I mean, we've heard this all before, but women, we carry so much, and we carry so much even from childhood. So and it doesn't matter what race you are, from childhood, all the expectations come, and so, a good example would be maybe, let's say, in a family of, let's say, 4, or maybe just a family of 3, 1 boy, 1 girl, and a mom. Lots of families are single parents. I'm a single parent, so I'll use that as an example, although there are lots of, double parents as well. And you maybe come back from work. The boy will be playing with his PlayStation or Action Man or whatever it is that boys play with nowadays. I don't have sons, but I'm just trying to imagine. And the girl will play with her doll, or she'll be playing whatever it is that girls do, or she's talking on the phone, or she's on Snapchat. Let's use modern civilization, and then all of a sudden it's time to do something, and maybe the boy falls down, and the mom says, "Why are you crying? Boys don't cry." And the girl asks for something. Mommy says no. She cries a bit more because she knows that if she cries, mommy will say yes. So she keeps crying, and before you know it, she's a 24-year-old, and she knows that all I need to do is just cry. And so without meaning to, she grows up to be manipulative.
Yeah.
And so that's why you would have the Karens, the Karens in the park that would just start crying, and the police will come.
Yeah.
And this would even come even before, positions of racism or anything, just in terms of how you've been raised, nurture or nature. And so it's interesting when we look at it to see that every woman or every child, every girl child, in some form or another, could have already been traumatized from as early as 4 years old.
I believe that we all have been on some level, because nobody has the handbook on parenting. And you're dealing with another human being who has their own things that they have most of the time haven't resolved for themselves. So that's going to be spilled out onto you.
Yes.
And then you're going to be affected moving forward. So to be honest, I believe that we're just not going to get out of childhood without something, because you're being raised by another human being, not an iRobot.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So they're going to do things, and because a child is so vulnerable and so sensitive, you gotta, if you haven't got the right balance, which most of us don't, because we're just guessing, right? There's no handbook on this. Even with the best of intentions, we can do things like, for example, if there's a sick parent, a sick child in your family network, the other child are automatically neglected because that child needs more of your attention. Automatically that happens. That's not, I'm neglecting, right? Parentification is another form of emotional neglect.
Yes.
Any of you out there been parentified by your parent, been made to be the parent? being made to be the adult, more so being made to be the parent, right? Take on adult duties, be the shoulder to cry on for the mother, be the listening ear for the mother, being treated as a friend to the mother when you don't have the emotional capacity to be in that space.
You know, and even with that, I mean, everything, you know, if my daughter, my oldest daughter was here, she would identify with that, because she would say that when mum was going through her divorce, you know, mum would cry on my shoulders, and I didn't know I was doing that. So sometimes you do these things without actually realizing.
Well, how would you know?
You know,
How would you know?
And the second we as women begin to know that this can happen, the earlier we can get help or do the interventions even before things become too late. And as you know, Sophia, I think she's dialing in from Brussels, if I'm not mistaken.
Hi, Sophia.
Yeah, she said, yeah, we're all products of our parents' trauma,
Exactly.
and it's up to each of us to break the cycle. Absolutely.
Exactly. And
100.
that's not to say like all parents are evil people. Like
No,
you
no.
said,
Well, I'm a parent, you know.
How are they supposed to know that this is even a thing? Right? That's going to affect them later on. And that's why I really do believe in the push for the normalization of trauma to a certain extent. I really want to push it towards being more mainstream normalized and not thought of as this big thing over here. Like, oh my God, you must be an awful person if you traumatized somebody or your child, or, it's like you had responses, you had a behavior that you didn't know was in any way toxic, and you did that. And that affected your child in a particular way. But you see what I mean? Because as soon as you say, oh, you did this toxic thing, the defenses go up and it's like, oh, no, I didn't. Or then you start to feel bad about it, or you want to hide it, or you want to push it down. And no, we need to be educated about what these things are. So when we engage in them, we can be like, ooh.
Yes,
that's
yes,
awful.
yes, yes,
Let's
yes,
not battle, right?
yes, yes,
Because it's not, and that's why I say toxic, narcissist, and abusive types, because I don't want to put everybody in the narcissistic box, because sometimes you have toxic behaviors based on how you were raised, the environment you were in. You don't even know it's toxic until you watch one of my videos and you're like, actually, I do.
Yes, 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 yes.
I do that thing, right?
Yes,
I
yes.
thought it was okay, right? So education, I think, is a huge,
Angelena, you've made a very important point here. I mean, you've been making, very critical, important points from the second we started talking, but this thing about, and it's something that, probably we need to be thinking about in terms of normalizing the fact that we are all damaged.
exactly.
And I'm using this, word advisedly. I'm not saying it as a negative, but when you go to Lidl or Asda, because of cost of living, Asda, Lidl, Aldi, I don't know if Waitrose have started as well, but lots of shops have this, what they call wonky fruit. So the wonky, what it could be wonky. I mean, I buy it a lot, that's why I know. But so wonky blackberries, wonky blueberries, and all that. And there's nothing wrong with them. Maybe it's the one that maybe when they've been picked, they've been rejected. But they've now realized that you have to package them. So they put them in proper packets. So if your normal blackberries are, let's say, $2.99, the wonky ones would be $1.99, and you put them side by side. There's nothing wrong with them, and that's how we are. We are all wonky.
Exactly.
You're all wonky. Now, there are people that really kind of verve to the other end, and they are evil, and we know that. So, what we're talking, typically, everyone
Really
has,
wonky.
yes, yeah, very wonky.
Disordered. We're getting into the disordered category. Don't hold me. Carry on.
But and so it should be something that from scratch, when it may be in schools, they start to teach, rather than teaching children about sex, in nursery school and stuff like that. These are the kind of things they should be teaching children. So, children can identify their feelings, know if they feel like this is what it's presented, and the parents themselves can realize this is how you're making your child feel. And sometimes it's a transference of how they were made to feel by their parents. you know. And so you normalize it. So you go to the GP and you're not made to feel that you, like you rightly said, if you're made to feel that you've done something wrong, you're going to be defensive. No, I'm not this, I'm not that. And then
then the point is lost, and the treatment and the approach to helping yourself is also lost.
Yes.
So I think a big part of what I do is also around educated, and it's not just the program, which is awesome, by the way, but another story for another day. But a lot of what I do is around educating people on what those symptoms are and how it can play out in your life so that you can recognize it. Because the thing is, one of the most astonishing things that I found out through, you know, my own studies around, well, not my own, my actual official studies around domestic violence and sexual assault and trauma and all that stuff, was that it actually makes you more vulnerable to more things that traumatize you.
Yeah.
So what doesn't kill you actually sets you up to be killed the next time, right? It's not what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It sets you up for the next.
Yes.
Right. So that is why I've made such a beeline for education, because I'm like, okay, we need to all be aware of what our traumas are so we can address the traumas.
Yes.
So we can make ourselves less vulnerable.
Yes.
To toxic, narcissistic, and abusive situations. So we can actually do that. We can close that up.
And don't re-victimize ourselves.
Or put us
ourselves at risk.
Yeah, right. Without even realizing it.
Because you let out light without actually, you know. So, you know, people that have the tendency of behaving in such a way to either abuse you or to treat you in a, you know, some kind of way, they see you coming because you're letting out, you know, does that make sense? So
yeah.
And I'm not saying that if you are in an abusive situation or, you know, it's your fault. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that when we get the help and the support that we need and are able to identify our triggers, identify our traumas, especially adverse childhood traumas, which is a lot. I know that's just a subject by itself. You know, we're more wholesome as an individual and we're more able to protect ourselves. So, because you know what to look out for, because if you know, this is your area more than mine.
I think that I read the book, The Gift of Fear, a long time ago. I think it was 2000, oh my gosh, 2000, basically. We're in the 2000s here, 2008, 2009, something like that. So don't quote me on this, but I think it was in that book where he was talking about how some toxic people, some abusive people, rapists and all of that stuff, will put out tests to see how susceptible you are to certain ways of being, right? So if if you're in a relationship with someone who's narcissistic and abusive, they're probably going to do it over a period of time. So if they meet you one night, they're not going to be, unless they're a serial killer, they're not going to throw out that test like that. They're going to be a lot more subtle about it. But it's the same applies. So if you engage in, so say, the big one, I call it the big universal trauma response, which is codependency, right? If you engage in that, you are vulnerable.
Yes.
To an abusive person.
Absolutely.
Every day of the week.
Absolutely.
Right?
24/7.
24/7. And the problem with this one is we are conditioned through society as women to behave in codependent ways. So we're getting hit at both sides. Like if were traumatized as a child, if you were traumatized in adulthood, if you've been traumatized in any of those ways, you're going to behave in codependent ways. But at the same time, you've got the society telling you that this is the way you're supposed to behave.
Yes.
Because this is what it means to be a woman.
Especially in heterosexual relationships.
Right, exactly.
You know, he should look after you. He should open the door. I mean, I'd want you to open the door for me, but he should open the door for you. He should buy clothes for you. He should, so you shouldn't really be doing anything for yourself. And when you try to do things for you, it's like you're going against the norm.
Well, it's more because the thing is, I'm not averse. I mean, I'm old school feminist, but I would like you to open the door for me.
I like that. That's why I had to put that bill.
I don't split bills.
I don't. Yeah.
And I'm happy with you paying for everything. I will keep my own stash of money. I call it an exit fund. Every woman should have one. Right?
You heard it. Have your exit fund.
Have your exit fund. Okay. Set yourself up, but
Mm.
I have no problem with any of that stuff, right? You know, those roles that they play and they push. But my issue is when they teach you that you are to outsource your validation to them.
No, I
This
know.
is codependency
Yes,
at
it
its
is. It
core,
is.
right?
So
When you
do I look beautiful? Oh, he said I don't. Oh, so I'll say to you, Angelena, you look lovely today. Oh, do I? Oh, but Peter said I looked horrible in that dress.
and that's what love bombing is about.
Yeah,
It's basically designed to get you to outsource your validation to them. Your sense of validation should be an inside job first and foremost. After that point, you can go ahead and, you know, listen to certain people, you know, but it should be rooted.
Dr. Put, you've just this is what I say all the time. Reinvention is an inside job. So I
It's
had
got
to
to be.
yeah,
It's got to be.
say all the
Right?
time.
Right? It's got to be rooted from within. So anybody that's trying to get you to outsource to them in any way is a red flag.
Yeah.
Because they are setting you up to act in a codependent way. And abusive, toxic, narcissistic relationships rely on you acting in a codependent way in order for the relationship or the non-relationship or the
He
dysfunction,
completes my words.
right? For the dysfunction to continue, it needs that codependent element. Now, the problem with that is once you've been trained into codependency, you don't just snap out of it once you leave the relationship. That is the problem with that. So if you were in a toxic dynamic, you could have, and the thing is, it doesn't even have to come from a relationship. Childhood trauma, for example, same sort of thing. Parentification teaches you to then abandon your own needs because they're not important. The needs of your mother is what important. That is what you've got to meet at all times. And then you go on from that to abandon your own needs for your partner because you've been trained.
And how many women, you know, the world over, it's not even race specific, but I mean, in the Black community, it's very, very, you know, very rampant where you put yourself, you know, you feel guilty. I was speaking to a client the other day and we were working through this and she was feeling guilty to go on holiday.
Yeah.
She was feeling guilty. Oh, what about the kids? She was feeling guilty to go on holiday for her 40th birthday.
And that's what I mean. We are trained as women to put, which is another form of codependency, right? To put aside our needs to meet the needs of other people. Right? And again, we need to stop. Absolutely stop doing that. It's one of the things that makes us most vulnerable. If we could just stop doing that, we would have our first layer of protection.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Because if they can't get that, the relationship cannot function. It cannot continue, which means they will discard you and do a load of things in order to break you so that you then become that. There are many different ways that they do this, you see.
And the thing is, and the thing about this also is lots of women. So you might, you know, go out and talk to a friend, a sister, or whatever, and say, "Look, you know," and she'll say, "Oh, but he's all right. At least he's doing this. At least, you know, Brené Brown always talks about the at least conundrum.
Yeah.
At least, you know,
scarcity. Scarcity dating.
Yeah, absolutely. At least, you know." And I know this is not what we're talking about, but it's I think that, you know, as we're going down this direction a little bit, lots of people either now or on the replay will see lots of things that they can take away. But just to bring it back a little bit back to trauma. Now, we talk about, people think that trauma is just in war, you know, torn areas. They think, you know, in abuse, we've touched on abuse, but it can also be physical, it can be emotional, it can be societal, it can be financial. It can be intergenerational. And we'll touch on these a little bit. And some of the comments, you know, have touched about, you know, parent, you know, purification and generation and all that. But I want to say, what would you say in your experience, Angelena, is the most common types of trauma? And I know this is just your opinion, really.
Okay.
Yeah, most common, you know, that women and girls face worldwide. And we're all going to go down and start talking about our community, but I want to because this is
What do
international.
you mean by what form of trauma do you mean? What do you mean?
I mean, like, for instance, would you say, and how it shows up in their lives?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's you know, so if you met a group of women who have experienced some form of trauma, which most of them would, how would you know when you see them in your experience, even without them telling you about how they behave? How would it show up?
In the way that they behave without speaking to them. That's tricky. That's tricky.
That's tricky. Okay.
Yeah, that's tricky because some
like in the workplace, let's say in the workplace, in a corporate setting, you're all in the workplace, in the team, and you do this, you know, this work on the side, and I don't mean on the side, you know, you do this, and you know, in your other life, and someone behaves in a particular way, you know, what would those telltale signs be? You know, I know some would be like, you know, oh, you know, fiddling with their hair, or I have to ask whether they'd be nervous, they won't be able to make decisions and stuff like that. But those are the very obvious ones.
I don't know what I'd be able to tell you from just looking. From a conversation, I could be like X, Y, Z, Z, B, you know what I mean? Yes. If they spoke about a relationship they were having with someone, I'd be like, okay, that's codependency. Okay, you got an anxious attachment style going on there. Okay, you got this going on. You know what I mean? I can see anxiety happening here.
Yes. So from a conversation, and when I'm talking about looking at them, I mean just you know, a superficial conversation. So they're not, you know, in your clinic, or they're not talking to you. Hello, how are you? Be jumpy or whatever, you know, because some people you can tell by the way they are overly, you know, exertive or withdrawn, and that's the sort of thing I'm talking about.
Okay, so in the workplace, you're not going to come up with some. Maybe someone would be, for example, like here's one. Won't take time off when they need to take time off, right? Because but then that's also a toxic work environment thing. Like that is celebrated within the toxic work environment. So it's a bit tricky, but it's not, because the fact that you're willing to do that is a self-abandoning right there. It's like when you're sick, you're sick. You shouldn't be coming in and you know, and having pride in that is another step up the ladder of not only are we self-abandoning, but we think it's cool. So
we're hard workers. We're hard workers, you know.
Right, exactly.
You're gonna get a watch at the end if you get that.
Right, exactly.
Service, you know.
People pleasing behavior, stuff like that, right? That kind of runs under.
I'll do it.
Right.
I'll do it.
Right, that kind of runs into the people pleasing behavior type situation, and a workplace, like I said, that is toxic, will celebrate all of that stuff.
Yes. Without actually identifying that the reason why everyone leaves at 6 o'clock and you're still there at 11 o'clock is because you have a toxic home environment. You know, so there's a duty of care for your organization to ask you why you're there. But typically what would happen is that they would say that you're not managing your time appropriately, because you should be able to do whatever it is that you've been assigned to do within your core hours. So it goes, you know, so you're busy trying your best. Well, I can't please people in my home life. All right, I need to please them at work. I'm going to do. And so you're there 11 o'clock, you're there. And then you get told off for being there because you're not managing your time. So it just goes.
Well, the fact that you don't feel uncomfortable with doing that shows that you were raised to self-abandon somewhere along the line. That's been normalized. So now you're like, oh yeah, I just do it at work. That's fine. But then it's not fine, because at the end of it, at the back end of it, you still are angry and resentful and the other things. Like there's no way of getting past that. Like you're doing the things, but you're also like angry, resentful, bitter, you know, in life, because you're doing what you feel you should do, but then you're angry that you're not being heard at the same time because you haven't committed.
My manners. I didn't offer you a cup of tea.
Oh, please.
Yes.
Please.
Oh,
I'd love some tea.
Right. Excellent. Earl Grey. I hope you like it. Yes.
Beautiful.
No sugar, no milk.
Yeah. So Yeah, so that's an action that I would take. But when it comes to like withdrawn and stuff like that, that is a lot harder to spot within, because people mask,
Yes.
right? They know how to mask, they know how to
Mm.
it. I think it needs a conversation or an interaction for me to be able to. I mean, I do it on my YouTube channel all the time.
Mm.
I break down social media things, I break down reality TV for the purpose of teaching you stuff based on what is being said. It's like, based on this, we can see this, this, and this, right? And stuff like that, as a way of teaching women what toxic looks like, what trauma responses look like, and all of that good stuff. So we get a real understanding of that, right? So, but it takes more. I don't believe that, well, I can't do it.
Mm.
I mean, I can,
Mm.
but it's not something that I can explain. Like, I get downloads about people all the time, but that's,
Yeah.
again, we're getting into the spiritual.
Yes,
It's not
yes.
something I can verbalize and be like, oh, it's because of this or this, or
I get it. I get it.
you get what I
Yeah.
mean?
And
It's
you've
not
answered the question correctly, because it's there's number one, it's not a one size fits all. It's not a 1 + 1 = 2. But, the reason I ask you these questions is because I get these kind of questions all the time. So how do I know? How would you tell? And it's not a linear.
And it's not like, how do you know? How can you tell if someone's abusive? It's like, well, you got to assess, which is what I say to everyone. You got to assess it over a period of time, and you got to be willing and healthy enough to receive the answers that you're getting and not make it something else.
Yes.
That is how you do it. But
yes.
But that takes you being in a healthy place to begin with, because
Yeah.
you'll start getting the data and making the data something else because you don't want to leave the situation, or it's the same with the trauma responses. It's something that you would observe over a period of time, or based on what someone says, based on their responses to certain things. It's not something that you can look at someone and be like, oh, you're traumatized, right?
Talking about trauma responses, can you mention a couple? Not because I know there'll be some people that are thinking, okay, I don't know what that is. What is a trauma? Because this is an area that is very not academic. That's not the right, but it's very clinical. And so. Yesterday, I was speaking at an event regarding menopause, completely unrelated to this. And one of the things I said is, you don't know what you don't know. So many of us are walking around traumatized with so many various, trauma response, with actually not knowing. And I know that on this show, we can't cure anyone. We can't, you'd have to go and look for your own support, but we can give a few kind of tips.
All right. So I've broken it down into two forms. We've got trauma symptoms and trauma responses. So the trauma symptoms would be things like anxiety, low self-esteem, depression, misuse of substances, drinking too much, eating too much, doing too much. We're just doing too much, whatever it is. We're doing too much of it, right? And then we have the trauma responses, one I've mentioned already, codependency. And anxious attachment is the one that is most common with women. Like, if you have, like, in childhood, your way of attaching is formed right there. So if there's any disruption to that, you're going to get some sort of dysfunctional attachment style, for want of a better word. Sorry, I'm tired. Right? So you're going to get some sort of attachment style and around that. So men usually lean towards the avoidant attachment.
Yes.
Right? And women usually lean towards the anxious attachment.
Yep.
Right? So that's another response, which the reason why I've separated it like this is because the responses is what makes us more vulnerable to further abuse.
Yes.
Right? Self-abandoning is another trauma response.
Yes.
Right? Stuff like that. Merging identities, another trauma response. Like we get to a point where we're just like, oh, okay, whatever you want me to be is what I'm gonna be.
Okay. All right then.
It's a form of self-abandoning, really. Right? It's like, oh, you want me to, ride motorcycles? You have interest in motorbikes? You want me to do that? Amen. Excellent. I'll do that. If this means that I get love and appreciation, which you never will, because they just want you to do that so that you are outsourcing your validation to them. It's not about the activity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
So it's never, they just want you in that place where you are not focused on your interests. But yeah, carry on.
And I just as even on that point, I believe, and I obviously this is not my background, and then this is I'm deferring to you, but just from my experience and from my coaching and counseling, I I've had the opportunity to counsel couples, and what was quite, I don't know, weird or quite interesting, alarming was the fact that both of them did not realize that they were, actually abusing each other.
Yeah, I know.
So it wasn't like, if, spoke to the man separately, spoke to the woman separately, and they were completely oblivious. They knew their marriage wasn't working, and they thought, okay, they needed to see someone like me. Obviously, with my hat with divorce recovery, I'm like, look, I've done divorce recovery. I know what a good marriage should look like, So I do that. I don't do it so much nowadays. It's more on referral. But what was they're back and they love, fantastic couple. But at the time, they didn't realize that their actions were actually, being really horrible to each other, and it was stuff that they got from their own upbringing.
Right. Exactly.
And the only thing that was working for them was the fact that they really, really loved each other, and they really wanted it to work for each other. And they was like, look, Zena, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. The man was crying. I've never seen a man cry like that in my entire life. He was crying. I've prayed. I've done everything. I don't know what to do. And we had obviously separate sessions before called them together, and then worked with them together. And the woman was saying something similar, and they did not realize. And so just listening to you there, where you say a woman, or it could be a man, one person in a relationship says, all right, I'll be whatever you want me to be, and the other person is happy, but not realizing that what you're doing is not the right thing, because there are people that
you can't love somebody who you allow to do that to, because who are you loving? You're loving yourself, because they're being who you want them to be. Which is a reflection of you, not them. So how can you then turn around and say that you love that person when they are not reflecting themselves at all? Like that, but again, like this word love is thrown around way too loosely to me. To be fair, I'm just like, what are you loving though? Right? And what you were saying about, I want to talk about that for a minute, because what you were saying about them not realizing that they were both like, that's one of the things, again, coming from a place of dysfunction. That's another thing that makes you vulnerable moving forward, because you don't even see the red flags, because the red flags are normal.
Absolutely, normalized. It's from day one. Absolutely.
So is that supposed to be dangerous? Oh, okay. Right. So again, another trauma response is poor boundaries. That reminds me. Right, another one. Right. So yeah, that's going to show up in you not being able to say no to things, not being able to set limits on things, not being able to, and even when you set them, not being able to stand on what you said.
Me as a parent.
Right? I'm telling you that we are not going to do this anymore. And then they do the thing and you're like, okay, but I'm telling you, you can't, that's repeating the boundary isn't how you set boundaries.
It's about enforcing them and keeping them. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's a tricky thing and it's a scary thing to do when you've never done it before. And you got to be prepared for the fallout of that. You got to be strong enough to be able to even do that. You can't just be, this is what I mean. Like, it's a whole inside job to be done before you even start applying to setting boundaries. Like people say, oh, just set boundaries. But where are you in your healing process? Because if you're not in the right place, you're just going to repeat yourself over and over again. Or you're going to use the boundary as a way of trying to control the other person.
Or you're gonna set boundaries that are really not boundaries.
What do you mean? Elaborate.
For instance, you're going to say, you're going to, basically you're going to set boundaries in such a way that you're actually, how do they say it? Spiting your nose, biting your tongue to spite your nose. So, you're so boundary that no one can get in and you can't get out.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
because
use
you're like,
because the whole thing about the boundary, and that's what I mean, using boundaries in the wrong way. That's not a boundary even, because a boundary is something that allows you to operate within your most authentic self, your safe space. It's like, okay, I like this and this done so that I can fully love and fully blossom and fully express in the way that I want to express, right? If I go outside of that comfort zone, I can't do that. It shrinks me. I then can't be the full loving person that I want to be, right? That's different
but
from
people don't always understand it that way.
why. And that's what I mean. Like the
Because
concept of a boundary.
control, you want to put control. These are my boundaries. You're disrespecting my boundaries because you don't.
Okay, all right then. And that's the thing. Like another thing, then
Language.
it comes with setting boundaries, and it comes with dating. Full stop. You got to be prepared to walk away, because otherwise that boundary becomes a form of trying to control the other person.
Absolutely.
Because,
You've hit
like,
the nail on the head.
it
Absolutely.
becomes, oh no, but you can't do that because that's my boundary. No. That's not even a boundary anymore. That's a control mechanism. Because what you should be saying is, I am not allowing this to be in my space. So I am going to be gone, right? When people say it's a very, very fine line, right? But people do that, become toxic themselves because they're not well enough or healed enough to actually fulfill the job. Not because they're evil, toxic.
Oh, no.
People, but although there are those people too. Don't get me started on that, right? But then there are also people who are just not well enough to see it through. So it's like, oh, I can't leave, so I'm just going to keep repeating this thing.
And then you end up being resentful, and you end up blaming. So basically, you've given your agency away. You're blaming someone else. I've told him before, and I don't know why we're talking, because it doesn't have to. It's not only in relationships. It's
friendships.
It's in friendships. And, it's in parenting. I can put my hand up as a parent. If you do this again, I'm not going to do this. And then 2 seconds later, you're doing it. So it can be.
And even as a daughter or a son, setting boundaries with your parents can be very hard, because your parents have toxic ways of making sure that you do what they're doing, what they want you to do, like guilt tripping and all of that stuff, right? So
I'm laughing because if my children were here right now, or they listen to this on the replay, they will be laughing like, talk to her. Talk to my mom. Who is guilt tripping me?
Right? So it's all, that's why I mean education. This is why I feel like education is so important, because the people that love you are going to hear that and go, "Ooh, I did that. Ooh, I need to find another way to do that. Ooh."
But you have to be honest enough with yourself to do that, because not everyone does that, and you're absolutely correct. We watch shows together. And
but now you're getting into the toxic version, into the narcissistic sphere of things. When you're in a place where you're not able to see what is, like this situation, you're like, oh, I can see that I did that. Oh, yeah. When you're not in that place, no one can work with you. Now you're making yourself someone that cannot be interacted with. Now we're talking about low or no contact, right? Because the first point is communication, right? To say, look, this is happening and that's happening, and it's making me feel this way and that way and the third way, right? And then hopefully, best case scenario, that person, mother, whatever, it's like, I didn't realize that was happening, because when someone loves you, they want to understand how they're affecting you, right? And they want to do things differently when someone actually loves you. When someone
sorry, I'm laughing at this because I'm just thinking about, we were talking about, sorry to interrupt you, we were talking about earlier on, we were talking about intergenerational toxicity and trauma. And I was just thinking about, you've got the baby boomers, the Gen X's, the millennials, the Gen Z's. I happen to be a parent of 2 Gen Z's. And when I interact with my children, I apologize for different things. I didn't realize I'm doing, we do all these things and stuff. But when I have conversations with my friends, like, why would you apologize? Did your mom apologize? Because obviously, where you're coming from, I can't remember. My mom's dead. God bless her. She was a lovely, mom based on, her generation and stuff. But I can't remember my mom ever apologizing to me for, she would have apologized for, but really deep things like the kind of things I would apologize to because it's a different generation.
Yeah.
Sometimes, go ahead.
But I was going to say the older generation are verging on the more narcissistic side of things. Like, we got to just call a spade a spade. Like, and come on, trauma causes a lot of what can cause the narcissistic behavior, right? It can lead to you engaging in narcissistic type ways, right? In toxic ways. It can. Right? It's not all, I'm a target of abuse and I'm just the victim. It can topple over into that category. And if you think about racism, that kind of because trauma is just not one way for Black people, right? So to say that the older generation were narcissistic isn't such a far reach, considering the level of trauma that they had to live through with just racism alone. The intersectionality of being a woman under a man's power with the racism, right? It's like it's a bit.
I mean, talking about that, I know, for those of us, in the UK, some of us, our parents might have been either the Windrush generation or if you're, from other races, either from South Asian. It doesn't matter, but you're not, indigenous English and you've come from a different country in the 60s and the 50s. At that time, there was this thing, and some people do it now, but not so much, where a woman would earn her wages if she worked, and she would give all her wages. It was expected for her to give all her wages to her partner.
Yeah.
And you don't question it. And then if you had friends who were not doing that, they were like, what? And so you got that. Then you got obviously the racism at work. You're right. The things they had to go through, so
the whole thing, like there's so Black people have been exposed to so much trauma. Like, I don't want to say it's light work now, but it's different now. It's not light work, but it's different now. So like I said, to say that they were on the narcissistic spectrum is not a far reach, because it's just like dog pile upon dog pile of trauma with no support network.
Yes.
My grandmother was left with 7 children in the UK, because my grandmother, my grandfather, they had a business, and he ran off with the secretary.
I'm not it's kind of thing we love.
Then we have no business, and he was left with no support system because she was the only one in the country with 7 children and no husband. His husband decided to just, and she did all the right things. She got married. She did everything in the right order. Can you imagine being left in England on your own
at that time?
Wow. With 7 children, and then he tried to get the house from her. Like literally put his children out onto the street. At that time. With not even a person you can like run to, like it's not like you've got a sister down the road or around the corner. You've got no one.
Because in those days, you be you one. You wouldn't. It's not like now. You got massive communities.
Pick up your mobile phone, get on social media, tell them all that.
Your friends in church and your mosque. We got communities now. You're right. When my parents came, they had to make their own communities, people that were not the same in different countries, but they were Black. And so that became the community. Unlike now, you've got brothers and sisters and cousins, and you're right.
So being alone, it's a pile-on of trauma. And then she goes out into the workforce at that time as a Black. It's insane. I don't even.
You're reminding me of my mom. My mom, not you personally, but my mom. I think I was born in the 60s, and literally my dad had come in the 50s, and my mom was back in Nigeria with my two older brothers, and then she left them with obviously my grandma, and came to join her husband, my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had me. Literally, my mom, literally, I don't think she would. I wasn't even. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't even 2 weeks old. I was what we call farmed. I was, taken to a foster mom. I had a good experience. I was one of the few that had a good experience. I lived with a white woman until I was 5, because my parents were working and studying. But the trauma, she told the story that she had to tape down her breasts so that it wouldn't be filling up with milk.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to lie, to say that she was, that she had a baby, because if she had said she had a baby, she would have lost her job. This was like in 1963, 64, 65. And the fact that you'd be in a house today, tomorrow they would say sorry, because then, maybe neighbors complained that there was a black family. They lived in one room at the time before they bought their own property. So all that, and I still remember coming. I'm a crier. I cry naturally. I'm a crier. And I remember my mom asking my dad, why am I in this godforsaken country? Why did I come? So, you remember the story of Small Island by Andrea Levy? It's a story of Hortense. You need to read it. It's a fantastic book. She's died. It's about Windrush. It's about a lady that came from Jamaica.
Yeah, I don't read fiction, but
No,
okay.
but
Tell me the story.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. It's kind of real, because when I read that, it reminded me of the things that my parents told me, and but what was interesting about that is, you're right. You're taken away from what you're used to, the community, the love, all the different things, and suddenly you're in a different country where no one likes you. You have to change how you do things. Obviously, you've got an accent, so you've got to, no one understands what you're saying. You understand, and all that trauma, and then you're going out in the cold. My mom said that the year I was born was the worst winter. She keeps telling me this, and so. And then, most of us grew up with, parents telling you off, parents shouting, because of all the stress that, they go through, and stuff like that. So you're absolutely correct.
There was no, I don't understand. I can't understand how they wouldn't be on that spectrum.
Yeah,
I don't understand how they wouldn't get there, because
older generation had to do with abandonment as well, which still causes huge problems today with the family structure. Absolutely.
Because the repeated trauma leads to like personality disorders, one of them being narcissistic personality disorder, right? So I can't see how they wouldn't have got there, quite frankly, with everything that they were exposed to generationally and directly in those times, right? Older generation had to deal with abandonment as well, which still causes huge problems today, with family structure leading to how men feel they fit in. See, I have a problem with this how men fit in thing. I mean, not based on what she say, and I think she's 100% correct. But I think that men struggle to fit in with society today because their main angle was oppression. Right? Their main angle was oppression, not love. The main angle was, you've got to be here. So be here, be quiet, have babies, and do what I say. So now that they don't have that reign, or, didn't have, let's remember what's happening in the United States now. They now have that reign. They're basically being given back some of that power.
Misogyny.
Exactly.
Misogyny.
Now that in the UK they don't have that, now they're struggling, and I don't know how to feel about that, because I'm like, you're struggling because you can't oppress us. I'm confused. Are we supposed? What are we? What are we supposed to like? Because
go back. Okay, darling, I'll come back. Please oppress me.
Yeah, okay, because you need a place to fit in, right? You need to feel like you have a purpose, right? Like, what about having a loving relationship with somebody? That's what I mean by the fact that you believe that you don't have a space shows me where your head's at in the first place. right?
Mm.
It's like, oh, I can't provide, so therefore I have no space. What about actually having a relationship with the person you're living with? Like, how about that? The person that you marry, how about you connect?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. You know, this is International Women's Weekend,
Mm,
and we've touched on a lot of things, and we haven't
yeah.
even touched the surface, and we've, time has gone so quickly. So I just want to, you know, we're talking about equality,
Mhm.
equity, parity. Um, when we say equal means equal, and we're touching a little bit now on us as a race now, when equal, what does that truly look like in your opinion for women and girls today? And what are the biggest barriers?
I feel like we have misused equality from the beginning. I just feel, and I don't know whether that has been fed to us through the new wave of feminism. I don't know how it got in there,
Mm,
but I feel like it's been misused because equality means giving someone a start whereby they can operate at the same
same
starting
level.
point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, so it doesn't mean I want to be treated the same, I should be treated the same as you, because that in itself is inequality. Because if you have more power than I do and I'm being treated the same as you, I'm still put at a disadvantage. Right? That's why, again, going back to simple case of the 50-50.
Mm,
It's like, why am I paying 50-50 when I don't get paid as much as you do? Everything
mm,
costs more for me,
mm,
and I don't have the privileges that you do as a man.
mm,
Make that make sense? So
mm.
me doing that puts me at a disadvantage. That's not equality.
Lots of women will be listening to this and saying, yes, you're saying my language. I go to work. I'm a care worker and I'm earning 21,000. I don't know how much they earn. That's 21,000 thousand a year. My partner, he works in security, cyber security, and he earns £50,000 a year. We come back from work around the same time, but I do a 12-hour shift. I come back, and I'm knackered. There's still no food on the table. I literally was, and this is not a fiction of my imagination. I literally had a conversation with someone last week. She's not a care worker, but a similar situation where they both work full time. They don't drive,
Okay.
so she gets the children ready for school. She gets on the bus, drops them off for school. Sometimes she'll be running late, and she'll ask her partner, her husband, please, since you leave for work later, can you drop? And he will, but he'll make it look like he's helping her. And so she's feeling really, really guilty. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, but you both work. You both work, so
That's another perfect example of how this 50-50 puts us at a disadvantage.
because they do 50-50, and this is the next question. She said, I pay the mortgage, and then he does the food, and I'm like, okay, but you said he earns twice as much as you, and but anyway, let's not
We're
get
getting into financial abuse there, because like, why are you doing right? Because there's this misconception that financial abuse can only happen if the person is trying to withhold money from you. But no, financial abuse can happen in wealthy dynamics as well, whereby the person makes you spend your money,
yes,
makes you live to a standard that you can't
yes,
meet because of the standard that they're at.
yes,
It's like,
yeah. And I have lots of examples of that as well. Lots of examples of that where women are in debt. They've got bad credit because their partners have been, they're living above their means. And she said no, 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 no. But then it's this boundary thing. You want to please him. You want to make sure that the relationship lasts. You want to make sure he doesn't leave you. And all the other.
and that's why I say you've got to be in a healthy place before you even start dating. You need to be always in a state of being willing to walk away. It's like, you can't be in a state, because then you leave yourself vulnerable. If you are in a state where you are like, oh, but no, but this, but that, but the other, where you're making excuses and compromising your baseline, being key. You know,
Yeah.
like obviously you negotiate
Non-negotiables. Yeah.
the when you're compromising on the non-negotiables, you're not in a healthy space to even be dating, right? But I think we got off topic. Point is,
I think we've gone off topic for the whole show, but that's great because I think what we've discussed is what we're supposed to have discussed.
I mean, Sophie says equity is what we strive for. I think I agree with that, but we're not going to get that because
we're 134 years away, and this is based on the current model.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, I feel like I feel like it's a narcissistically abusive dynamic when it comes to equity, right? Because it's like whenever we try to get some form of fairness, there's a new layer of BS that is exposed, right? It's like, okay, that's
a technical term, BS, but you know.
Basically, it's a technical term, guys, you know, right? There's a new layer of something unjust that is introduced, like, but in a trendy way for society, right? Like, you know, the hookup culture.
Yeah.
Insane to me. Another thing, right? As soon as we try to get to a space where we're like, no, we want fairness, it's flipped on its head. We wanted fairness and we got, you know, we can do what you can do. That's not fairness. You know, because quite frankly, I don't want to change a tire. You know, I feel like
change a light bulb. I don't want to change a tire. You know,
I feel like there are certain things that we as women are, and that is not me personally. I feel like there's certain
gender roles are gender roles. You know, without just the basic things. You know, men are stronger, so there'll be something that they can do. Women are not as strong physically. We might be stronger emotionally and mentally, but there are certain, and this is not for us to go down that route because I know there'll be people say, "Oh no, but women can do it." Yeah, I know. If you're a helper and you're Olympian and you're a shot putter and all that, we know. But what we're saying is that there are certain things that women can do better, and there are certain things that men can do better.
And I feel like there's certain things, and I feel like there are certain things that women are, what is it? And not that it's not just better, that we actually genuinely enjoy. Like we're nurturers.
Yes.
That is just that's just in our making because of the biological programming that is woman.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like if we can get a grasp of that, we can start taking our power back. Because what we've actually started doing is self-abandoning as a gender.
Yes.
A lot of the time, right? We're like, oh, we can be like men. Why would you want to? That's their job. And it's not even just that's their job. That's their forte. That's their thing. Why would you want to behave like a man when your natural setting is to be a nurturer? Again, that's self-abandoning behavior. Now, if you are more masculine, amazing, right? That's fine. But if you're going out of your way to do that so that you feel to get some sort of power, that's a whole nother bag. That's a whole other form of disempowerment. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Right?
It does.
We need to be functioning within our female state and not being embarrassed by it because society makes us do that. Right? Oh my gosh, you're so emotional. Yeah, that's what we're designed for. Right? All that intuition, yeah. It's our literal life-saving mechanism.
That's our bent.
Which is within us to protect us from danger in ways that, I mean, I'm not going to say that guys don't have it because they do, but they don't have it to the extent that women have it because we need to be protected at a higher level, right? We're more vulnerable as a gender. So then to be shamed by it and told that, oh, you shouldn't be like that. There's no shouldn't be.
And I think it goes vice versa as well, that we should also not be telling men, because like you rightly pointed out, that there are, most women or a greater proportion or percentage of women are nurturers, feminine energy and all that. And men are the other way around. But there are men also that have, are more nurturing. And so they shouldn't also be made to feel ashamed if they are like that, because there are men that are just like that naturally. And this is nothing to do with sexuality, but just in terms of
Yeah.
their behavior. You know,
Yeah,
that are very nurturing, very caring, very.
but no, carry on, go on.
No, go ahead, because I think we need another show, but.
But I was gonna say, but like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's
Mm.
what when I say nurturing and caring, it's about being who you authentically are.
Yes.
It's not about being a thing or playing a role. It
Mm.
just the way that there are men who are more nurturing, there are women who are more masculine. And if you are of that, then be that. But what I have an objection to is being of a nurturing nature and putting on the masculine hat.
Yes.
That is, I have full objections, right?
Because you're trying to say, well, this is who I, I want to show that I'm a feminist.
Self-abandonment.
No, and I'm all for feminism to a certain level, but I don't want a situation where I'm now become unrecognizable, and so to myself, and so you end up being a round peg in a square, or a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I think it's absolutely critical for all of us as women to be as authentic as you can to yourself.
It's our most empowered
survival.
state. And that is why we have been conditioned through society and shamed by it through society, because they know it's the most empowered state. So you're supposed to, you get emotional. Yeah, that's what it is to be with a woman. If you don't like it, maybe you should start dating men. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, this is it comes with the package, right?
I want you to talk about a little bit about, because we have to come to an end now.
All right, okay.
But I'd like you to talk a little bit about, Livin Warrior.
Okay.
And I'd like you also to talk about the app, because obviously it is the first of its kind, and I'm incredibly proud of you for it. And I know you've put in a lot of work in it, and I know if I wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning, this is all you're going to be talking. People, you might be thinking, oh my days, where do I need to write notes and all that. She lives and breathes this stuff.
Yeah.
Without a word of a lie.
Yeah.
So if you need to reach out to her, if you happen to be a counselor yourself, you happen to be, a therapist, and you need some help in terms of how to get the tools for your business so that you can do what you do even better, you need to reach out to this woman. If you happen to be a woman or a man who has experienced some form of abuse or trauma, I'll say that. And if you need, put it this way, you need help. We all need help. You need to talk to her and find out how you can sign up with what she does. I think that's the best.
Okay, so I wanna interject there. Not men. I don't work with men.
Oh, you don't like men? Okay, sorry.
No women left behind.
I like that. Okay, I love that.
Working with women. If you need any help, working through leaving a toxic dynamic or just working through your trauma, that's the thing about the app and my program in general. It's beautiful in that way, because not only, the complete program helps you to leave the relationship and walks you through recovering from the trauma, and then recovering from the trauma symptoms, and then recovering from the trauma responses. So it takes you through the whole package. That's why it's the first of its kind, because it not only gets you out of that dynamic, but again, gets you working in a way and interacting in a way that makes you less vulnerable instead of further vulnerable.
Yes.
Right. The second option is just to work on the trauma. So if you've left and you've maybe years now, but you still got anxiety, you still got low self-esteem, you might want to work on your codependency. You have anxious attachment style, you have poor boundaries, all of that stuff. Again, this program is for you, right? And you can do this all beautifully from the beauty of your phone, right? From the convenience of your phone.
The app.
Many different therapeutic approaches to help you work through your trauma. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. Check it out at the Livin Warrior Academy. anything related to trauma, anything related to abuse is there. If you want to just learn about toxic and abusive dynamics, what that looks like, what trauma looks like, and how that shows up at a deeper level, there's a free training program on my website. And if you just like reality TV, come to the Live More Academy YouTube channel, because I break down all things there related to I do things on Love is Blind. We've got some stuff on
Love is Blind,
Wax to Witches. We've got like social. I do
What's your website? Because I should have put that. Let me put it here.
www.thelivinwarrioracademy.com.
Livin.
The School of Abuse Recovery and Empowerment for Women. Got a program I've got a support group, therapeutic support group, to help you decenter toxic dynamics and recenter yourself. There's a lot going on. I'm very big on recovery from trauma, and I'm very big on true empowerment for women, not this 50-50 nonsense or this hookup culture nonsense. I mean, like, really.
I like the fact that you're old school. Hook up.
Because it's so disempowering, so damaging. It's insane to me to see.
Have I spelled that correctly?
Let's have a look. The livinwarrioracademy.com. That's it.
All right. So people, please take this down. Like she said, she's got lots of things, and you can download the app. And if you want to get more information, it's a very wide area that is really people think that it's just for the the confines of therapists and counselors and psychologists and all that. But if you educate yourself, you'd be more able to protect yourself.
Well, here's the beauty of the program, is that the reason why I put the program together is to bring mainstream therapy to the online self-help platform. Because what was happening is people weren't getting the therapy, and are still not getting the therapy that they need. They're not getting access to it, or they're not getting enough access to it for long enough. There's just so many problems around that. Which is why I put together the program, because I'm just like, okay, and like I said, real therapy, the stuff that you would get in a therapeutic chair. Right? Not, think about it, spin around 3 times, and none of that nonsense, like real stuff. That's the beauty of it. Also, if you download the app, you can get daily affirmations to your phone.
People, download the app. Look for it on your Android or your iPhone. If you can't find it, go to the website.
You actually have to sign up to the therapeutic support program to get the daily affirmations on the phone.
They will find that when they follow you. So follow her, either go to her website here, or you can find her on Instagram, which is just her name. You can say it again, Angelena Lewis.official, and then whatever it is, I can't remember. I remember that.
That's you can follow me on TikTok there and Instagram there. The YouTube is the Live More Academy YouTube channel. So,
well, I think they've got most of the stuff.
There's so much. Oh, and on Threads, I forgot about that.
You can watch this also on the replay, so you'll get all the information that you need. Angelena, this has been absolutely brilliant. I could go on forever. This is I forgot that I'm actually live. I thought we were just sitting down having a chat, and I'm sitting in my car as usual. But this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing so generously, of your time and of your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
Of your expertise. I've learned so much, and I think I know not a lot. But when I do these shows, whoever it is I interview, I end up learning much more. And I'm thinking, I just want you all to myself. But obviously, my promise is that I share and I spotlight around the world. So I'm hoping that people that are watching right now, or those that will watch on the replay, on when it eventually gets uploaded onto Spotify, wherever it is that you get this, take what you can get. This is something that will help you. You heard it. We are all traumatized. Or like I like to say, we are all damaged. But the good thing is that God gives people gifts, and there are people that can help us, include me inclusive. So take the help, guys, and happy International Women's Day, weekend, month. This is about empowering us as women. This is about making sure that those things that trip us up or have tripped us up in the past will no longer trip us up again. It's about taking responsibility for your own growth, for your own repair, for your own restoration, and everything else in between. You want to give one final word before we go off air?
Okay. What? Sorry. What's the one final word?
You can give them one tip. One tip.
One tip.
Yes.
Okay.
If I give you 3, we'll be here next year. So I'll give you 1.
Connect to your authentic self.
I love it. I love
Whatever you're doing.
I love it. I love it.
Connect with that, and you're going to be good. You're going to be fine.
I love it. I love it.
You're going to be well.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Connect with your authentic self, and you'll be fine. Thank you so much, Angelena. Absolutely love you. Absolutely loved this interview. And I can't believe the time has gone so much, but this was a brilliant one. A brilliant one. Thank you so, so much. Oh, people.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for staying on. For those of you that are here.
We hope you've been motivated and inspired to go out there and conquer any obstacles and issues you may face. You can find Dr. Zena on all social platforms. Until next time, remember, you're not alone.